What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, what's going on with other factors involving the market, so what you should be watching for as we approach tomorrow, because I'm going to give you guys some very important price predictions. But before I break into details information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100, you are guaranteed 7 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon, in just about 1 day from now. So it ends tomorrow. Make sure you check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to the markets. Looking at SPY, we got this very bearish day on Thursday that led to this very, very big red bar. And once I pull up the daily chart, I'll show you what it looked like. And then, we got a little rebound on Friday, but the question is, will we continue with this push? Will we continue to rebound, or are we going to come back down to fill some gaps? So I'll talk more about that and give you guys more insights about my personal opinion on how the market can move. But first, let's talk about some data. So today is Monday. The market's actually closed for today in commemorance of Memorial Day. So hope you guys are having a very, very happy Memorial Day weekend. You guys are having fun today. But going into tomorrow, the market will reopen on Tuesday. In the morning, we have Mester giving a speech. Then later on, we have Cash Cardi giving a speech at 9:55 a.m., right after the market opens. Then we have consumer confidence coming out around 10 o'clock a.m., the 3-month and 6-month bill auctions coming out, and more Fed speakers as time goes on. But that's going to be very important for Tuesday. Going into Wednesday, that's when we have more minor data as well, like the Fed page book and such. Thursday's when we have the GDP numbers, and Friday's when we have PCE data coming out, just as a very, very quick reminder. But for now, we're just going to focus on Tuesdays. We have a lot of Fed speakers, not to mention the beige book, and we'll see what that leads to in the markets. For earnings, we just have a very, very minor amount of them. We just have like Kava on Tuesday, not to mention on Wednesday, we have Chewy and Dick's Sporting Goods. On Thursday, we have Kohl's, Foot Locker, Dollar General, Dell, and also Costco. Costco is going to be very important after the market opens for retail. So we'll see how their sales look. Moving forward, when it comes to the Fear and Greed Index, right now the market is quite neutral. We were getting very close to fearful after that big drop we saw on Thursday, but going back to Friday, the market rebounded a bit. The market is back to neutral, so things are still holding up decently. Looking at market momentum, we're still quite greedy, and also other indicators are still showing that the market's holding up. The put and call option ratio is still starting to go up again, as we're starting to see more and more of these. A little bit more put buying that happened over the last couple of days. Not as crazy as what we've seen before, but that is a sign of a little bit of a shift in sentiment. And the VIX remains very, very low. But remember, this is the lowest we've seen the VIX since like the 2018 to 2019 period. And generally, when we see it this low, it does tend to bounce a bit. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. So that being said, what do I think is going to happen to the markets? Honestly, guys, it really depends on different factors, but I do want to note that there is a risk of some downside later on. Is it going to happen immediately? Not necessarily. The market could still push a little higher, but I do want to talk about the risks looking at the bigger time frames. So, the first risk on SPY would be the fact that when you look at the daily time frame like this, we have this bearish engulfing candle, and typically when we get bearish engulfing candles like this, the market typically rebounds for a little bit before it continues a little lower. That's what happened during this move right here back in April. It's also happened many times historically in the past. Another example is like right over here. This bearish engulfing candle led to more downside. This example is where this when we were at like a peak right over here near previous highs. We saw a bearish engulfing candle. We had 3 days of a little green and sideways price action before we continued to fall. So those are like 3 examples of how that happened in this setup, especially as the market's hitting new all-time highs. So what do I think is going to come from this? And let me just call out that for SPY, we have this gap to fill down here on the daily time frame at this 523 area. There's also an intraday gap to fill on SPY that's still left there from Thursday. So from the way I see it, I think that looking at the 4 hour, we have this imbalance to fill up here. So we could attempt to go a little bit higher on SPY to try to consolidate. But I do presume the most likely possibility is us tipping just to test 520, very close to the 520, so like 521 to 523. Do I think we're going to just smash through that? We can't really say that. We could bounce off 521 to 523 and make our way back up to the highs all over again. So you have to really watch your levels carefully. We can't just assume SPY is going to go down to 500 because we first have to lose 520. We first have to lose 505, for example, right? We can't break all-time highs. We can't just go to 550 from here. We first have to get past the all-time high. So we have some roadblocks in the way before we can make those bigger moves. And that's why I want to focus on this one level at a time. So what do I think SPY is going to do? Just to be very frank with everyone, to be very, very unbiased, okay? These are some very, very tight resistance levels and support levels. I actually drew these out based off smaller time frames because I am a scalper. So I like to scalp intraday a lot more. That's why I have very tight levels. But if you want to watch them, you can actually use this for very, very interesting ranges. Let me make it very clear that from the way I see SPY moving, if we're bullish on SPY, if we're going to continue to push, you're going to be watching 530.8, try to break that. Then we have 531.5. If it breaks that, the 531.5 area is very close to our 0.618 pivot level. So we'll see if that ends up being the case, at least for SPY from a Fibonacci standpoint. But to be bullish, the main thing you want to do is break the all-time high. If we break the all-time high, then yes, we're going to continue to go possibly all the way up to a parabolic squeeze towards 540 if we break the all-time high. If we're bearish, you want to see SPY basically reject and end up losing 528 as support. If we lose that, I do think we're going to be dipping all the way down to 525 at least, if not the gap fill to the 523 to 521 area. So what do I think is going to happen? Now that you guys know the levels I called out, what do I think is going to happen? Here's my honest assessment. I think that for this may last a day or so, but what's going to happen in a nutshell is SPY could try to push a little higher, reaches 531.5, maybe start shuffling a little bit up here. And then whether it takes a few days, whether it takes one day, that's hard to determine. We're eventually going to likely see a move back down to fill this gap. I think that's going to likely happen. That's the most likely possibility I'm going to be eyeing, a gap fill towards that 523 area. And we could even base around 521 or so. And then once we reach the 521 to 523 area, I don't know if SPY is going to continue to fall. I think we could actually bounce off that and start to push back up higher again. But that's what I'm seeing as the most likely possibility in the chart based off these different factors and based off this big red bar that formed as we're seeing a shift in liquidity in these markets. I find that to be very probable. So look for a move up to our key Fibonacci area. Towards 531.5, maybe a little bit lower than that. Our imbalance is going to fill in the 531s, so somewhere closer to 531s where this may top. And then we're going to be looking for a move back down to the lower levels for the gap fill. I will turn back to bullish if we break the all-time high, but so far we haven't really done that. And the odds do favor a little pop and drop like move for that gap fill, and then maybe a bounce once we fill the gap. That's what I think is the most likely possibility. How is Nvidia looking in my personal opinion? Well, honestly, guys, excuse me, Nvidia's looking more bullish. I think Nvidia could attempt to go all the way up to about 1080 to 1100, somewhere in that range before we start to see a little pullback, and then we end up dipping a little bit more before we start to shuffle again. So I think that Nvidia could still go a little higher. There's no sign of this breaking down yet. We could be looking for 1080 to 1100. So there's still more potential for this to go higher for now before anything else. How about for Tesla? Tesla, in my opinion, it does have potential for a very, very interesting trend. But let me just call this out right now. We're in a giant inverse head and shoulders like structure for Tesla right now. It looks just like this. We have this left shoulder here. We were kind of shuffling in this area. And then we have a right shoulder, which is where we're shuffling again. And there is potential for us to break out higher, at least later on. But I just want to make it very clear that basically, as far as Tesla goes, we're hitting resistance around this 180 area. It could try to go a little higher. I think it could go a little higher. The 4 hour still looks kind of bullish. So to me, I think that Tesla could still try to push a bit higher towards 180. If we break that, I'll be looking at 182. But I'm not counting on that to just explode through all those levels unless we get a bullish catalyst. Tesla's heavily dictated by news, but for now, technicals do show it might go a little higher towards 180 to 182. Then likely make our way back down, just continue to trade range bound. Because Tesla's been stuck between 172 and 182 for many, many weeks now. It's been going back and forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla were to push a little higher towards 182 or so, come back down to our 50 EMA and retest it, which is going to be very, very close to about the 176 area. And then we'll see what happens after that. But I find that to be very, very probable. For the QQQ, just like SPY, this has been pushing up very nicely, but I'm going to be looking at resistance around this this is basically the 459 zone, just under 460. We have support at 457 and also at 455.5. I wouldn't be surprised if we were to either pop a little bit more and eventually start to cool off a bit on the QQQ, or we just cool off from here. I think we're going to be looking for a move towards 455 very, very soon, where our 20 EMA happens to be. And if we lose that, we could be dipping a little bit lower. So just like SPY, I see that we have a gap down here to fill as well. Very, very tiny one at 451. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually kind of like rebound a bit and then eventually make our way lower, or we just dip a little bit from here. So watch and see how things go. We may shuffle for a little bit in this upwards direction before we start to dip, but I find that to be very, very probable. A little dip could be coming. Same thing on Aapl. Aapl ended up dipping quite a bit, all the way down to about 186. We're trying to rebound. So watch this resistance at 190.5 to 192. We also have support at 189. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up dipping a little bit. So we kind of pop and then drop back down towards 188, which is where this imbalance happens to be. And we'll see how things kind of like end up going from here. So I'll be very, very patient in the process. I'm going to be waiting to see how things end up moving, and we'll see if there are any developments, at least on the chart, at least from here. But I think that Apple will most likely pop and drop. Look, we're going to be looking for a move back down towards this imbalance. I think that 188 is going to be tested again within the next couple of days. For Bitcoin, we're looking pretty decent right now, trying to rebound quite a bit. You can see how it's been trying to push up higher, but just be careful as we're hitting resistance at 70,000. Will Bitcoin reject off this and start tipping back down to our 20 EMA at 69,000? I think there's a very good chance it's going to end up doing so. For a few more factors involved in the markets, we have Palantir. Palantir is rebounding a bit, going to be looking for a test of this 20 EMA. 21.17 is going to likely be tested. And we'll see if we reject or not, but I do see that as a strong possibility. For Supermicro, we're attempting to rebound it, but can be looking for a test of about 900. Might retest 900 or so, shuffle for some time to make its way back down towards the 856 area. So I'll be watching for that. For Rivian, Rivian is kind of trading sideways within the range. Look for a test of about 10.63. I think it might push a little hard to this imbalance before it trades sideways near our 20 EMA. So look for a pop and drop. For SoFi, we're actually dipping a little bit. We're actually trying to turn on the 4 hour, look for 7.02 and then 7.1, and we'll see what happens after that. But overall, I just want to say there is potential in this nonetheless. For the IWM Russell 2000, we have our 200 EMA being tested right here. We're going to be looking for a test of 205.83 to 206. It's going to go a little bit higher, but just be careful because the trend is showing signs that this is turning. It could push a little higher, but then once it's resistance, we'll see if we get a rejection or not. But that's going to be key for how we end up moving. For other factors involving the markets, we have AMD is trying to rebound. The technicals do look a bit more bullish on it overall, but despite the fact that it's going to likely push up towards higher levels later on, we do have this shuffle zone. It loves to shuffle between 170 and about 168. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually go a little higher towards 170 as resistance. Then we come back down, just shuffle a bit up there. But look for a little bit more upside on AMD. For ARM, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a push coming. It might go a little higher towards 116. So we'll have to see what what it ends up doing after that. Excuse me, guys. And then we'll look for a little bit more upside. I think 117 is going to be tested in more sideways price action. For Coinbase, we're looking a little bit more bullish. I think that there is potential for this to go a little higher towards 240. But remember, the last time we had 240, we did reject. So I think it might go a little higher and then shuffle in this 240 area. Maybe it gets a little pop, kind of like the 242, then comes back down towards our points 236 retracement area at 228, and just continues to shuffle for some time. But look for a little bit more upside and move back down, then some more upside again for a little bit more sideways price action. For Amazon, we're also on a bit of a downtrend, but Amazon's holding up very well above 180. If we were to lose 180, I'm going to be looking at 178. If we hold 180, which is close to where our 200 EMA happens to be, look for a rebound to 182.8. So watch for a big test on Amazon. So far, it's passing the test very well, holding 180. There's a very good chance it might try to hold and try to rebound. So watch that 180 support. For Meta's trying to push a little bit higher to look for 478 as resistance. We're going to see if this is a head and shoulders or if this is just a trap that's forming. This could be a left shoulder, this could be a head, this could be a right shoulder. It looks to me like it's going to try to invalidate that and actually push up towards about 480. It's about 482. I think it might be trying to test this high again. So this could be a trap for retail to start shorting for when they start squeezing shorts. So we might see Meta actually push a little bit higher and actually invalidate that bearish signal. So that does have potential to bounce and push a little higher. Microsoft is looking more bullish. Look for a bounce and a push towards about 434, and then we might just kind of shuffle up there. For Google's testing the 20 EMA's resistance, looking a little bit weak right here. If we reject off here, look for a move to 174, a little bit of a move to the downside. I am seeing some weakness on the charts if we do reject. GameStop and AMC are showing some life. I'm seeing life on GameStop. We have this imbalance to fill all the way up towards 30. I think that we could get a breakout if we manage to break past 22.5. So there's potential in GameStop. For AMC, this is also looking a little bit more bullish. I think that this could try to push above the $5 area. So I think that there's going to be a big rally in AMC in the next 1.5 months up towards 7 plus. For now, it's just they're kind of accumulating shares down here. So I do see potential for a bounce. So we'll give that some time. DJT is trying to rebound. If it breaks the 20 EMA at 46, we're going to be looking for 47.5 as our next target. The VIX, it's still shuffling in this 12 area, but know that historically it does bounce here. So I think there's going to be a bounce in the VIX within 2 weeks. Not saying it's going to be a squeeze or anything like that. Just a little bounce. I think it's due for that, which is why I think the market may actually dip a little bit. That's another factor. So that's something else that's worth noting. 10-year Treasury yield is kind of rejecting here, so it might come down a bit or not. If it does bounce off this, then that could be a little bearish for the markets. It is looking like it's going to dip a little bit more, but it could be forming an inverse head and shoulders. So look for a little dip on the 10-year Treasury yield and see if we get a bounce to fill some of these gaps, and we'll see how things go. And last but not least, the 10-year, the dollar index is testing resistance right here. We have support at 104.5. We have resistance currently at 104.7. If we break through that, look for a push. Overall, this is looking a little bit more bearish. So this does favor a little bit more upside for the markets, but we'll see how the dollar reacts. But with that being said, guys, as far as the markets go, I think things could go a little bit higher temporarily, but we could be seeing a move to the downside a little bit after that. So temporarily, there might be a little bit more upside, but there might be a move to the downside right after. So that's kind of like my views of SPY for the time being. And we'll be watching to see how we end up reacting to some tough resistance levels. So watch the market push a little higher tomorrow. Try to hold up for a bit, but there might be a rug pull coming as soon as tomorrow, if not a little bit later, and we'll see how things go moving forward. The reason I say that is because of what we're seeing with the big red bar, not to mention other technicals, the VIX, and all these different factors combined. They do favor us trying to fill that gap below before we try to bounce again. So we'll see how things go. Anyways, that's it for the video. Have a very, very happy and very, very plentiful Memorial Day. I hope you guys really know the importance of it, and you guys just have a great time. So take care, guys. For those who have holidays today, who are not working, take care. Do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day. We have plenty of hours left. Have fun. Do what you have to do, guys, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and peace out.